So as House Ways and Means Chair, you have to sort of keep an eye not only on the line items, but you also have to keep an eye on the big picture. Jobs are up, deficit is down, but interest rates are going up and Wall Street prospects look pretty dim right now. Why should moderates, not tied to either party, which are sort of the key to would determine who will control Congress, why should they vote for Democrats?
Well, it's pretty simple. The unemployment rate is at a 50-year low, 3.5%, as you noted. The deficits have come down substantially. And I think that the president's position as it relates to the infrastructure bill, the rescue package, go back with me on a bipartisan basis to the CARES Act, I think that we've demonstrated our ability to govern time and again. Dr. Fauci gave his warning, March 11th, 2020. By April of 2020, America had lost 22 million jobs. Every one of those jobs has been returned, Janet, and now 10.1 million jobs still go unanswered every day in America. The GDP report yesterday, it was pretty good, 2.6% growth after the two previous quarters where there had not been much growth. It indicates that what the president has attempted to do with the Democratic Congress is to provide a soft landing for the American economy, to put inflation in the rearview mirror. And inflation, by the way, it's an international issue. It is not just a national issue. Much of it has to do with the pandemic coupled with Ukraine and Putin's punitive decision to invade it.
But a lot of voters can't see the big picture. They just notice that when they go to the grocery store or they go fill up their gas tank.
Or they pay their house payment.
Or they're making their mortgage payments or whatever. That's all they see, and they go, I can't do this. Even with a job, I can't do this.
Understandable. And I think we need to display the necessary empathy, understanding that the problem that they have, and also to recognize that wages have grown by about 5.5% through this president's administration. And coupled with what I noted earlier, gasoline prices have begun to go down substantially. And I think that that's part of the patience that is going to be required. This didn't start with Joe Biden. And it's going to require, I think, the American people to give a little bit of time, perhaps maybe into early next year, before we see inflation begin to recede.
So let's touch on a couple of things that are in front of you. They're in front of all of us here as we go to the polls. 9 days or so from now? Question one: how will you vote on question one, the 4% millionaires tax?
Okay, so I'm likely to vote for it, but I also want to say I don't think it's the best way to do tax policy. I think that the state of Massachusetts right now is in pretty enviable financial condition. And I also think, coupled with the fact that the infrastructure bill is going to lend itself comfortably to Massachusetts. But if we can make sure that the legislature decides what to do with that money for transportation and education, I think that that's a sound argument. Now, back to tax policy. I think you're better off when a legislative body does tax policy, period.
Period.
Question 4, undocumented drivers getting undocumented drivers getting licenses, yes or no?
I support that, yes.
You support that. Should I'm going to start with this first question. Should more seats be added to the U.S. Supreme Court?
No.
And so therefore 4 more seats, you would clearly say
Here's
no.
the problem, Ed. They win, they're going to add seats to the Supreme Court. It'll be unending. So the Supreme Court has hardly been locked into a number, but I think that those that suggest right now that we ought to change it because we dislike the moment with which we live, the problem with that argument is that once they win, eventually, which they will at some point, when they win, then they're going to change it again to add seats. So I think that, the Supreme Court, by and large, throughout American history, has been a vestige of decency. And I think that even the current heartburn that some of us feel about the decision making, I think that we need to be careful about embracing it. And so President Biden and I would be in agreement on that.
Okay, looking for a prediction from you.
Yeah.
Does Donald Trump run, or does he get indicted, or neither?
That's a great question. He certainly talks like he's going to be a candidate. Whether or not that means he's trying to hold everybody in balance until then, I don't know. Let's be frank, his hold on the Republican Party is quite extraordinary. And I think that the others are waiting as well. I thought Pence had an interesting answer the other day when he was asked would he support Trump. He said he thought he had somebody else in mind.
And if he gets indicted, does he still run, possibly?
Yeah, that's speculative. He certainly has kicked out many of the norms that many of us thought you needed to embrace to get elected president.
So you wouldn't discount it?
I wouldn't discount it.
This may be the most pressing question of the moment because there's a game at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi?
Mac Jones.
Whoa, we didn't even hesitate.
No. Well, I think that you're going to make a long-term investment here, and I certainly like the emotion of the first 2 quick touchdowns that were scored against the Bears, but I think then predictably things settled back, and I think the long-term investment in Mac Jones is going to be a good one.
Mr. Chairman, great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
terrific to be with the two of you. I can't tell you how nice it is. Complete sentences.
Oh my
Great to have
goodness.
you on the record.